There are moments in baseball that define an entire generation, moments that make you remember exactly where you were when the news broke, the kind of earth-shattering, jaw-dropping, reality-bending transactions that send shockwaves through every clubhouse, every front office, and every fan base from coast to coast. What I'm about to reveal to you might just be one of those moments, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around whether this is pure genius or absolute insanity. Picture this scenario for a second. The Los Angeles Dodgers, already stacked with enough superstar talent to field two all-star teams, are reportedly considering a trade so massive, so audacious, so completely unprecedented that it might fundamentally alter the balance of power in Major League Baseball for the next decade. We're talking about sacrificing not one, not two, not three, but four legitimate baseball assets, four players with real value and real futures, all for the services of a single pitcher, one arm, one man. And before you start hammering away at your keyboard telling me I've completely lost my mind, before you dismiss this as clickbait nonsense or trade deadline fever dream, I need you to hear me out. Because when you actually dig into the numbers, when you examine the cold, hard reality of what it takes to win championships in modern baseball, when you look at the extremely narrow window the Dodgers are operating within right now, this trade might not just make sense. It might be the only move that makes sense. The name you need to burn into your memory is Tarik Skubal, the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner, the Detroit Tigers ace, the left-handed assassin who absolutely dominated the entire American League last season with an earned run average under 2.40. We're talking about a pitcher who doesn't just win games, he completely demoralizes opposing lineups. This is the caliber of arm that doesn't become available very often, the type of generational talent that teams build dynasties around. And according to Mark Powell from Fansided, the Dodgers aren't just kicking the tires on a potential deal. They're supposedly preparing a package so substantial it would make your head spin. The proposed haul going to Detroit? Emmett Sheehan, a young pitcher who's already shown he can handle major league hitters, Alex Friese, a top 100 prospect who represents the future at the hot corner, Zachary Root, organizational depth with upside, and Patrick Copen, another piece of the developmental puzzle, four players with years of team control, four assets that could contribute to winning baseball for the next half-decade, all heading to Motor City in exchange for Skubal's left arm and the dreams of October glory it represents. Now, before we go any deeper down this rabbit hole, if you haven't already smashed that subscribe button, what exactly are you waiting for? This channel exists to give you the analysis the mainstream sports media is too scared to touch. We don't do surface-level hot takes here. We don't parrot the same tired narratives you can get anywhere else. We dig into the uncomfortable truths, we explore the scenarios nobody else has the guts to examine, and we ask the questions that make general managers wake up in cold sweats at 3 in the morning. This Skubal situation is exactly the type of franchise-defining decision that separates championship organizations from perpetual also-rans. So click that subscribe button right now because you're going to want to be part of this conversation as it develops. Seriously, do it. I'll be right here when you get back. Let's address the elephant in the room head-on. The argument against this trade practically writes itself. You're surrendering four controllable pieces, four players who could contribute to your organization for years to come, all for one pitcher who's eventually going to hit free agency and could command a contract that would make your accountant weep. Emmett Sheehan has already demonstrated he possesses the stuff to succeed at the highest level. Alex Friese could potentially solve a positional need for the next 6 years or longer. You're essentially loading all your ammunition into a single barrel and pulling the trigger, banking everything on one arm staying healthy, one pitcher continuing to perform at an elite level, one gamble that could blow up spectacularly in your face if Skubal hits the injured list or simply doesn't replicate his Cy Young form in Dodger blue. But here's where that conventional wisdom completely crumbles under closer examination. The Dodgers aren't constructing a roster designed to peak in 2030. They're not playing the long game, hoping these prospects develop into contributors 5 years from now. They're operating within a very specific, very finite championship window that's open right this second. Shohei Ohtani, the once-in-a-century talent, is in his absolute prime right now. Mookie Betts, arguably the most complete player in baseball, isn't getting any younger. Freddie Freeman, the steady heartbeat of this lineup, has a limited number of elite seasons remaining. When you've assembled this caliber of talent, when you've got genuine superstars entering their peak competitive years simultaneously, you don't sit on your hands hoping prospects pan out. You push your chips into the center of the table and go all in. The time to win isn't 3 years from now when these prospects might be ready to contribute. The time to win is October 2026, and every decision the front office makes needs to be evaluated through that lens. Let me break down exactly how this trade works from both perspectives, because this isn't just about the Dodgers acquiring their white whale. For any deal of this magnitude to get across the finish line, it has to make sense for Detroit too. From the Dodgers' standpoint, you're creating a starting rotation that would make opposing managers physically ill when they look at the matchup card. Imagine rolling out Shohei Ohtani, who's returning to the mound with something to prove, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the Japanese sensation who's still just scratching the surface of his potential, Blake Snell, the two-time Cy Young winner who can be utterly unhittable when he's locked in, Tarek Skubal, another Cy Young Award winner bringing championship pedigree, and Tyler Glasnow, when healthy, a pitcher with perhaps the most electric stuff in baseball. That's not just a rotation, that's an absolute gauntlet of death. That's 5 legitimate aces, a murderer's row of starting pitching where your 5th starter would be the unquestioned number 1 on at least 15 other teams. In a 7-game playoff series, you could theoretically never face an opponent's best pitcher with anything less than your own ace. You could match firepower pitch for pitch, never giving the other team an inch of breathing room. For Detroit, the logic is equally compelling, just from the opposite angle. Emmett Sheehan gives them an immediate, major league-ready arm to slot directly into their rotation. He's not a prospect anymore, not some lottery ticket you're hoping hits. He's a pitcher who can absorb innings right now, today, providing value immediately while the organization continues its rebuild. Alex Freese potentially solves their third base situation for the next 6 years or longer, giving them a cornerstone position player to build around. Zachary Root and Patrick Copen represent high-upside lottery tickets in their farm system, prospects who could develop into rotation pieces or bullpen depth, organizational assets that keep the pipeline flowing. For a Tigers team still in the process of transitioning from rebuilding to contending, this package represents both immediate help and long-term investment. But here's the wrinkle nobody's discussing in public. What if the Tigers push back? What if Detroit's front office counters and says, thanks for the offer, but we want Dalton Rushing instead of one of these other pieces? Because if I'm sitting in the general manager's chair in Detroit, that's exactly the conversation I'm having. Rushing represents the type of high-ceiling prospect who could become a cornerstone player, an impact bat who could anchor the middle of a lineup for a decade. The Tigers would be well within their rights to demand premium talent for a Cy Young winner under team control. Now here's where things get really interesting, where we venture into territory that might sound completely insane at first, but actually makes perfect sense when you game it all out. What if this Skubal trade is just the opening salvo? What if the Dodgers are planning a multi-layered strategy where acquiring Skubal is merely the first domino, and they're already planning subsequent moves to replenish the prospect capital they're surrendering? Consider this scenario. You execute the Skubal trade now, securing your ace for the playoff push. Then you pivot and trade Bobby Miller, whose stock has declined somewhat but still carries value, to Atlanta for J.R. Ritchie and Patrick Causey, names that have been circulating in trade rumors. Suddenly you've acquired Skubal, extracted value from Miller before his stock potentially drops further, and added another high upside arm in Ritchie who can develop in AAA, while Causey provides organizational depth. That's asset management operating at the absolute highest level, the kind of three-dimensional chess that separates elite front offices from mediocre ones. Or consider an even more audacious scenario. What if they're not done dealing? What if acquiring Skubal is step 1, and then they leverage their outfield depth, which is substantial, to acquire another impact bat? You could theoretically construct a roster where you're rolling out 6 legitimate aces between your starting rotation and high-leverage relief core while simultaneously maintaining the most potent offense in baseball. You'd be creating a super team in the truest sense of the word, a juggernaut that would be favored in every single game they play. Go ahead, call me insane. I'm ready for it. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Tell me I've lost my grip on reality. But before you do, let's war game out the potential scenarios, because every major trade exists somewhere on a spectrum between transcendent success and catastrophic failure. The best case scenario is the stuff championship parades are made of. Skubal arrives in Los Angeles and immediately validates every ounce of faith the organization placed in him. He posts an earned run average below 2.50, completely shutting down opposing offenses night after night. The rotation becomes utterly untouchable, a 5-headed monster that opposing lineups have nightmares about facing. The Dodgers cruise through the playoffs with overwhelming pitching superiority, able to deploy Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Skubal in a 7-game series, never giving opponents an opportunity to catch their breath. They capture the World Series in dominant fashion. Then Skubal, enamored with winning and the culture in Los Angeles, re-signs on a team-friendly deal that provides both security for him and flexibility for the franchise. The trade goes down in history as one of the most lopsided victories in Dodgers history, the move that cemented a dynasty. But we have to be honest about the nightmare scenario too, because it's very real and very possible. Skubal's arm, which has already carried a heavy workload, doesn't hold up under the increased pressure and exposure of a pennant race. He hits the injured list in June with shoulder inflammation, that dreaded phrase that makes pitching coaches break out in hives. The prospects the Dodgers surrendered all develop into solid, productive major leaguers for Detroit. Emmett Sheehan becomes a consistent 3-earned-run average starter, reliable and durable. Alex Friese wins a Gold Glove at third base, becoming a cornerstone of Detroit's infield for years. The Dodgers, meanwhile, miss the playoffs entirely because their rotation depth is completely decimated and they can't overcome the loss. The front office finds themselves answering extremely uncomfortable questions about why they mortgaged the future, why they put all their eggs in one basket, why they didn't see the warning signs. The realistic middle ground is probably somewhere between those extremes. Skubal is very good, legitimately excellent even, but not quite transcendent. He delivers a 3.20 earned run average over 30 starts, which is genuinely impressive, but not Cy Young caliber. The Dodgers make the playoffs. Skubal provides 1 or 2 absolutely brilliant playoff starts that keep their championship hopes alive, but they ultimately fall short in the championship series. The prospects turn into average major leaguers, nothing spectacular but solid contributors who have decent careers. It's not a disaster, not a catastrophe that gets people fired, but it's not the home run everyone hoped for either. And then comes the truly difficult decision when Skubal hits free agency and his agent is asking for $250 million. Do you pay him based on what he might do, or do you let him walk based on what he didn't quite accomplish? Here's the fundamental truth that cuts through all the speculation and hypotheticals. The real question isn't whether this trade makes sense on paper, whether the numbers add up in some spreadsheet analysis. The question is whether the Dodgers are willing to go completely all in right now, to embrace the risks and accept the consequences later. And honestly, when you examine where this roster currently stands, when you acknowledge the championship window they're operating within, when you study what it actually takes to win in October, when every team is throwing their best pitchers and the margin for error shrinks to nothing, I genuinely believe they have to do it. Championship windows don't stay open forever. Opportunities to acquire Cy Young award-winning pitchers in their prime don't come around often. When you have the talent the Dodgers have assembled right now, you can't afford to be cautious. You can't hedge your bets and hope everything works out. You have to be aggressive. You have to be bold. You have to make the moves that might look crazy to everyone else, but give you the best chance to win when it matters most. The Los Angeles Dodgers are standing at a crossroads, and the path they choose will define this entire era of the franchise. They can play it safe, hold on to their prospects, hope everything develops according to plan, and risk watching their championship window close without maximizing their chances. Or they can do something audacious, something that makes the baseball world stop and take notice, something that signals to every other contender that they're not just trying to compete, they're trying to dominate. 4 players for Tarik Skubal might sound excessive until you remember that championships aren't won with depth charts and prospect rankings. They're won with elite talent performing in the biggest moments, with aces shutting down opponents when everything is on the line, with organizations willing to take calculated risks in pursuit of ultimate glory. So what do you think? Am I completely out of my mind for supporting this trade? Would you pull the trigger on 4 players for Skubal if you were running the Dodgers? Do you think Detroit would actually accept this package, or would they demand even more? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, and let's have a real substantive conversation about what it actually takes to build a championship roster in 2026. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most fascinating potential trades of the season, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our analysis. We've got more blockbuster trade scenarios coming your way, more uncomfortable questions that need asking, and more insights the mainstream media won't touch. This is where real baseball discussion happens, and I want you to be part of it. Until next time, keep debating, keep questioning, and keep dreaming about what your team could become if they're willing to be bold enough to seize the moment.